When you leave the moldy house, your brain can still be in a state of hypervigilance, in a state of fight or flight, and you could still be out of the exposure and not be exposed to mold, but your brain could still be in that chronically activated state. Why? Because you were exposed to neurotoxins, okay? Things like Stachybotrys produce trichothecenes, then you got ochratoxins, gliotoxin, you get all these different mycotoxins that are actually toxic to the nervous system. So when you have chronic exposure, you cause chronic inflammation, you have a chronic activation of the mast cells within the brain, and that causes this chronic inflammation, and it causes the immune system to expect inflammation. So you have inflammation that just persists for months after the exposure because the immune system has been so conditioned into being exposed over and over and over and over again. It produces these inflammatory molecules even when you're not being exposed. So how do you slow it down? How do you get the body back into balance after severe mold exposure? Well, the first thing you do is you got to eliminate all the triggers, the immune triggers, okay? And the main ones are going to be in your diet, obviously, if you're not in your environment, you got to worry about in your diet and in your perception, in your physical activity, the things that affect your nervous system. So in terms of diet, you don't want to be eating large amounts of dairy, gluten, eggs, nuts and seeds, meat, and expect to be able to get better, because you're going to end up having this feedback loop where you're going to eat this food, it's not going to be fully digested, it's going to cause the toxins to release, or it's going to cause leaky gut, which will make your neurological system more inflamed. And if you just keep on consuming these foods, you're just going to keep on perpetuating the inflammation, and the immune system will never actually think it's safe to calm down and stop producing these inflammatory molecules. You got to realize that the immune system has to be reconditioned in the brain to be able to actually heal, right? So anything that's triggering you, you have to identify. You have to document with a log the things when your symptoms go wrong. You got to be able to see the stressful events and how they're impacting your symptoms. You got to see the foods and how they're impacting your symptoms. This is what I do with clients. I get extremely meticulous to show the things that are throwing us off balance. They're triggering our immune system, because we have to recondition our immune system. We have to learn how to listen to our body, the signs from our body. When our immune system tells us, nope, what we just did wasn't a good fit, then we have to learn how to listen to it, right? If we don't, we stuff it under the rug, we have issues in the future, right? So you got to recondition the nervous system after being exposed to mold. The main ways to do this are going to be slow, deep breathing, okay? Slow, deep breathing is going to be the first best way to do this. And you're supposed to ideally do it for at least 20 minutes, twice a day. This is breathing through your nose, closing your eyes, imagining stress releasing out of your body through your legs as you're exhaling. You're sighing out fully with your nose. You're breathing all the way out until there's nothing left. You're breathing all the way back in. You're expanding your lungs. They've shown in studies that by expanding the lungs like that and doing these slow, deep breaths, it can actually reset the autonomic nervous system within less than 6 months, okay? And that's only an activity of something like 15 to 20 minutes a day. If you're doing 20 minutes twice a day, you could be looking at a 3 or 4 month recovery in terms of your nervous system. The other thing you want to do is you want to stop buying into these fears, stop buying into these perceptions that you're in some dangerous scenario. Oh, the money, or the girlfriend doesn't like me, or I'm not big enough, or I need to get this job to be okay. All these things that force you to not be comfortable in your own mind. They all put stress on your nervous system, and they force you to continue to stay in that fight or flight state. And unless you start to change the way you're looking at life, you start to write down some of these traumas in the past and be willing to accept them, move past them, realize by holding on to them, you're going to do harm. This is what I also do with clients. I help them work through these traumas so we can change the narrative around them, change the storyline, go ahead and move past the trauma. Now we look past the trauma, and if possible, we go ahead and use the trauma in our narrative as something that defined us, that gave us strength to be able to get to where we're at. There was a blessing. This is the most important thing when you're dealing with trauma. If you could flip it around, that somehow the trauma was useful for you to get to where you're at, and where you're at is invaluable to you, and it is priceless to you, then the trauma was necessary to get there. And that's the way to instantly get rid of the trauma, if you could believe that. So we got the trauma, we got the food triggers, you know what I mean? We got the perceptual stuff, the observational stuff. If we're doing our meditations, doing our deep breathing, that's great. But we also want things like, magnesium, things like apigenin, things like cysticercanus, other things that calm down the mast cells naturally. We don't want synthetic vitamins at all, right? This is the key to healing the nervous system, okay? You got to realize you got to want to do things slower in general, slower. We're not seeking stimulation all the time anymore. We're not constantly looking for the next thing to provide an instant gratification, instant adrenaline rush. We're doing the opposite. We're seeking relaxation. We're seeking restoration. We're preferring calmness, wellness, balance over everything. And that's how you heal the nervous system after being exposed to mold. If you don't, you'll carry this personality with you the rest of your life. You'll justify it through external things. You'll say, oh, that's the reason I'm doing this, or that thing outside of me is the reason I am this way. And you will not be able to grow, mentally, spiritually. So thanks for watching. Go to my website, endsickness.org. I have hundreds of articles, hundreds of videos on there teaching you how to heal. This is from my 22 years of experience. Take care.